We're gonna do it, let's get to it. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time you're watching this. You're watching a new episode of Kylie Retrospectives, a series in which we look back at all of the albums Kylie has released in the lead up to her new album, Disco, which comes out on the 6th of November at the time of recording. I am ElliXia's Valentine, Marvin's answer to... Let me think, who am I today? Who am I feeling today? I am ElliXia's Valentine, Marvin's answer to Lisa Scott Lee. This week we are delving into Kylie's fourth album and probably one of her most unknown. Let's get to it. Today's look is inspired by mainly the Word Is Out music video. You know, Kylie's dressed a little bit slutty. I've got my lace and my fishnets on show. Got a nice hole in my gloves because they're too small. During this era she was trying to continue on from that progression of becoming a bit more sexual and more womanly, and this is meant to reflect that. Kylie had a lot of critique at this point in her career where people accused her of trying to copy Madonna, and that's quite apt because I feel quite Madonna-ish in this outfit. You can't see it, but I'm also wearing like a petticoat, lacy skirt. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Do you know how long I've been waiting to say that at the beginning of a video and for it to make a bit of sense? Let's get to it right now. That's the title track. We'll get into that. So Let's Get To It was Kylie's fourth album. It was released on the 14th of October, 1991, and it reached number 15 in the UK albums chart. This was actually her first album not to reach the top 10 as well. This was also the first Kylie album to feature singles that didn't go in the top 10 at all, breaking her streak of 13 consecutive top 10 singles. Fun fact, this was also the last Kylie album to be released before I was born. So, let's get to it. let's get to it. This album's a bit of an obscure one, really. There aren't any like definitive signature hit singles from the album like there have been with the previous ones. It hardly ever gets referenced on tour. It's often left out of greatest hits compilations. It's generally quite a forgotten album, which is strange because it came out when Kylie was at the peak of her career, like at this point. Maybe people were a bit fed up of her at this point, I don't know. But that does happen, doesn't it, sometimes when an artist is just releasing and releasing and releasing and they verge on overexposure. And Let's Get To It was also the last album with her record label PWL, and the last album in which she was working with the Hit Factory as well, which wasn't Stock Aitken Waterman anymore because Aitken had left. This album also contains 6 tracks co-written by Kylie, which was a personal best at that point as well. So, what do we think of the tracks? The general sound of this album is very mixed bag, to be honest. Like, it's a little bit all over the place in terms of its sound and the styles it's trying to achieve. It feels a little bit like Kylie recorded these 10 tracks and then like the record label just sort of put them in a raffle and that was how they decided the track listing. It doesn't really flow particularly very well. So let's start off with the singles. We have Word Is Out. Word Is Out, I think, is a really good song. I love Word Is Out, actually. It was her first single not to reach the top 10, reaching number 16 in the charts. It therefore broke the chain of successive top 10 singles at that point. And I think at the time she actually was a record holder for that as well, although I know Girls Aloud have since beat that, and then to be fair, somebody like Ed Sheeran's probably beat that as well. Yeah, I don't really know why Word Is Out didn't do so well. Maybe again, like I said before, the overexposure. I think Word Is Out is great. I think it sits among the singles of this period really well. I would love it if she performed it more on tour or even referenced it more. It very rarely gets referenced. It wasn't included on Ultimate Kylie. It wasn't included on Step Back in Time until the reissue of it as well. So it's kind of a forgotten track, but I love it. And in the video, she's kind of like... in the video, she's like obviously dressed a bit more provocative. I read a comment that dubbed her as prosy Kylie. I don't really condone that kind of language, but at the same time. And also, a pre-fame Davina McCall appears in the video as well. Fun little fact for you there. Then we have the second single, If You Were With Me Now, which was a duet with Keith Washington. I have to confess I don't know who Keith Washington is outside of this song, but I believe he was fairly big in America at that point. I don't know if this was maybe an attempt to get Kylie some more exposure in America. I don't know. Bloody hell, this is really ripped, isn't it? I only bought these the other day. I'll try not to show this hand anymore. If You Were With Me Now is a duet ballad that's very dramatic. It's very like, you know, pining for like your lost lover kind of thing. It very much evokes the image of like a glamorous woman in the 50s like running after the train that her lover's on. I don't mind If You Were With Me Now. I personally think, and this is no shade to Mr. Washington, but I personally think it would probably be a better song on its own, just with her and no other vocalist. Kylie herself kind of looks a bit bored in the video as well, although she does look stunning. The styling in this video is very gorgeous. I'm trying very hard not to use my right hand right now. If You Were With Me Now fared better on the charts, reaching number 4. But again, it's kind of a song that gets left off quite a bit. It's not on greatest hits albums or tours very often, so, but I don't really mind because I don't think it's as good as Word Is Out. Then we have Give Me Just a Little More Time, a cover of the Chairman of the Broad song. Chairman of the Board, not Broad. Is that a Simpsons joke? I think it's a Simpsons joke. Anyway, this song was released as a single in 1992. The last single to be released before I was born as well. This single actually was probably the most successful one, reaching number 2 in the chart as well. This is the one that gets included on the greatest hits, if anything from this album is going to be included on it. Which is weird because Kylie herself, like never performs it on tour. I think she performed it on the Anti-Tour. I don't even think she performed it on the Let's Get To It tour. You know, yeah, Give Me Just a Little More Time. It's fun, you know, it's an enjoyable little feel-good bop. I like it. I can't do the brrr thing that she does. I can't do that at all. You know the sound I'm trying to make. So whenever I'm singing along to it, I just go because I can't do it. I can't make that sound. Yeah, it's a fun song. Deserving of being the highest charting single from this album? I don't know, but I still enjoy it, you know. Then we have the last single, Finer Feelings, which reached number 11 in the chart. Finer Feelings received a single remix by Brothers in Rhythm for its release, and it was much of an improvement, I think. Brothers in Rhythm did a really good job with it, and Kylie actually worked with them again quite a few years later as well with her subsequent releases. So it was a good start in the partnership. She's thinking about, you know, what is love without the finer feelings. You know, she can get pleasure from a man anytime she wants, but, you know, she wants something more. And without that, what is it? Lyrics are considerably more mature than what we had had from Kylie before. Not gonna get on the phone to Ofcom this time. I've made my peace with it. Finer Feelings, I would say, is probably the closest we have to a signature hit from this album. It doesn't get performed on tour, but it's been referenced on tour a few times. It's been used for interludes, and she also used it for the Abbey Road sessions as well. I remember with the Abbey Road sessions hearing Finer Feelings for the first time, actually. That was the first preview we had of this project, of the orchestral greatest hits. And I can remember listening to the intro to Finer Feelings, and I was just like, oh. I was like, oh my god, this is stunning. And I regularly return to that version of Finer Feelings. It's a perfect song to listen to in the bath, by the way. You're welcome. So yeah, out of all 4 of those singles, none of them are particularly huge or that well known outside of Kylie's fan base. And that's kind of a shame, really, because there is some goodness in this album as well. And then we have the album tracks. First up, we have the song Too Much of a Good Thing, which samples Janet Jackson's Control. It samples that bit in the intro of Control where Janet says, I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. I love that sample. Also, Kylie and Janet should really collaborate together. Too Much of a Good Thing is a good song. However, you can't really hear Kylie in it that much. A lot of the song is like backing vocalists. The verses, you can barely hear Kylie's voice in it at all. So like it's a good song, but it's like, where's Kylie? Showing this hand again. Sorry. Do you know what? Maybe I'll just... No, that's better, isn't it? Then we have... What's the next one? Then we have the album's title track, Let's Get To It, which is a nice sort of slow R&B smooth little number. Not the most fun song, not the most exciting song, but it's a nice enough song to listen to. There's not really a lot to say about the song though, really. It's good, I like it, you know. Nothing on this album stands out as bad or awful, so that's a plus. You know. Then we have Right Here, Right Now, which is Chef's Kiss. Little hidden gem on this album. It's very early 90s, very danceable, ever so slightly tips its hat to rave, but not quite. Like very pedestrian rave. Is it even rave? Am I talking out my arse here? Maybe I am. Sorry to any rave fans if I'm speaking out term. But I really enjoy Right Here, Right Now. It's fun. I do have a memory of playing it in the car with my friend Sam, and he said it was shit. So that was kind of sad. Then you've got Live and Learn, which is another okay kind of track. It's mid-tempo. It's got a nice message about, you know, never giving up and learning from your mistakes. One of the lines is never undo what's already been done. And I think, you know, that's true. You know, we can't turn back time. We do have to learn from our mistakes and, you know, carry on. It's a nice little message. I just think it doesn't really do it for me. It's kind of a bit, the track itself it's a nice mid-tempo track, but it's nothing special. Sorry. Then we have No World Without You, which is a ballad. It's a very stripped back ballad, actually. It shows off Kylie's voice quite well, especially for that time. Again, you know, Kylie's never been like a renowned vocalist, you know, like she's no Whitney or Mariah or Christina, and she's never claimed to be either. At this point especially, people doubted her vocal ability. She had like the name The Singing Budgie for quite a long time. But I think No World Without You is a really nice understated number, very much shows off her vocals. She wrote it herself, and she was adamant to get it on the album as well. It's quite sweet. The lyrics aren't particularly original, but you know. Then we have a complete gear change in the last track, which is I Guess I Like It Like That, which is an experience. It's a rave track. Now this is actually a rave track inspired. It samples that Two Unlimited song, you know, the one that's like I don't know what it's called, but it samples that song. You know, the song that's used in like sports montages. I think it's in Space Jam. I want to say it's in Space Jam. It samples that. It sounds on paper like it should be a disaster. I think some fans don't really like this song. I enjoy it though. I think it's really good. Remember when I first heard it, I really loved it actually. It used to be like my workout song because it had that very much that vibe of like, duh, 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 you know. It suffers from the same thing that Too Much of a Good Thing suffers from though, in that you can barely hear Kylie on it. But she does do a nice little ad-lib bit at the beginning and then again at the end as well. And I Guess I Like It Like That is 6 minutes. Well, it doesn't need to be that long. There's a 3-minute edit that was a B-side to If You Were With Me Now, and that version is fine. I don't think it needs to be as long as it is. And that's the end of the main album. So it's a bit of a mishmash of styles. Like I said, you go from like nice mid-tempo then to like a ballad and then to this slap you in the face rave track. Then we have the B-sides, which at this point, I would say are the strongest B-sides that she has. First up, we have Say the Word, hyphen, I'll Be There, which already gets points for using a hyphen in a title because you don't tend to see that very often. Say the Word, I'll Be There is another ballad. Is not. So I say that the B-sides are really good. This is the weakest one. It's a little bit cheesy. It's a little bit of a standard ballad of like, wherever you are, I'll be there, basically. But it gets some extra points because it uses the word kidnapped in a song, which you don't hear that very often, do you? So, you know, credit where it's due. Then we have Do You Dare, the B-side to Give Me Just a Little More Time, which is a wig-snatching banger. I would snatch my wig, but it took me a long time to get it like I want it. So. Do You Dare is proper rave. I think it was in late 1991, it got serviced to some DJs in clubs with a white label under the name Angel K. Because Kylie didn't really have like street credit at the time, they thought if they knew it's a Kylie song, they're not going to want to play it. But they gave it under a different alias and it got a good reception in the clubs. Do You Dare sounds very much like music from like an arcade fighting game in like the late 80s, early 90s. It's very Street Fighter, Streets of Rage, Tekken, I love it. It's very much that vibe. I think it's a banger. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, wow, what, you know. I actually would have really appreciated Let's Get To It to have been... I don't think I would enjoy Let's Get To It a lot more if it was an album in this kind of style. But then I also understand that that probably would have been a bit jarring for Kylie's fans and the general public at that point. And then the last B-side we have is Closer, which shares its title with a song that was released 18 years later, An Aphrodite. Closer is the B-side to Finer Feelings, and again, it's another really good song. It's very house, and it's not as ravey as Do You Dare, but it's like a nice counterpoint to Do You Dare. It's quite sexy and it's quite sleek. If you were to personify Do You Dare, it is a model on like a 90s runway who's like really fiercely strutting down the runway and has caught someone's attention. Closer is then that same model at the after party seducing this man. That's my fan theory. Closer is really nice, it's quite minimal. Again, it has elements of like early 90s arcade game music about it as well, which I really, really like. Those two B-sides are actually better than a lot of what's on the album itself. In terms of the styling of Let's Get To It, I touched upon this already, but Kylie was trying to show she'd grown up. There was a lot of leather, a lot of lace, a lot of fishnet kind of thing. She was very much trying to be sexy, and a lot of commentators said she was a wannabe Madonna, which I can kind of see. Kylie herself would refute that and say she was more inspired by Janet Jackson, which of course is evident because Janet is even on Too Much of a Good Thing, even though she's not credited. And a Kylie and Janet collaboration definitely needs to happen. Let's Get To It is, on the whole, it's a decent, enjoyable album. There's plenty to enjoy on it. It just doesn't really hang together that well as a body of work. And I think it's just because it is a little bit all over the place. It's definitely her least cohesive at this point, anyway, from what she had before. There was some sort of like commentary on this album cover as well, because if you look, you can see there's like two men looking at her, and Kylie herself looks quite bored, almost. A lot of people think that this cover is her being bored with her current situation in the record label, and she wants to move on. In 1992, just under a year later, she released a Greatest Hits album, and that included all of the singles from the albums that I've covered thus far, and therefore ending her career with PWL and Stock Aitken Waterman. That sort of looking for change is very evident in the cover. I've watched quite a few interviews with Kylie during this era, and she does seem a bit bored and a little bit over it. I think there were like public perceptions of her, and I think she was getting a bit fed up of it at the time. She signed to the record label Deconstruction not long after The Greatest Hits was released, and very much began to move on and grow as an artist. So Let's Get To It is, I would give it, if I was grading it like an exam, I would give it a C grade, I think. And yeah, that brings us to the end of another episode of Kylie Retrospectives, so thank you very much for tuning in. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine. Before we go, I would like to give a shout out to my friend Lily, whose birthday is today. So happy birthday, Lily. Love you, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Mwah. So yeah, that brings us to the end of another riveting installation of Kylie Retrospectives. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on the socials, leave a comment, unless you hated the video, in which case don't. And tune in next week, where we will be covering her self-titled 1994 album, Kylie Minogue. One of my favourites as well, so we're in for a good one next week. Thank you very much once again for tuning in. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine, and please, please book me so I can buy some new gloves. Mwah.